Welcome to the Spike Camp podcast. Spike Camp is a free online community for hunters that support conservation. It's a great place to share stories and your experience with other hunters. As a member of Spike Camp, you get access to all of our hunting live streams, discussion channels, contests, hunter resources, and events that we host. Membership to Spike Camp is free. Our only ask is that you are a member of a hunting or conservation group before you register. Head over to spikecamp.com to join us. This episode of the Spike Camp podcast is brought to you in part by Precision Optics. Omer and his team are the ones to trust when it comes to mountain hunting gear, guns, and optics. Precision Optics is a major supporter of conservation, and we are proud to partner with them. Head over to precisionoptics.net and tell them that Spike Camp sent you.
Well, welcome everyone to part 3 of our international hunting series. Tonight's guest is Alex Sharif. Alex has written over 30 articles documenting his adventures worldwide. His true passion is sheep and Ibex hunting in Central Asia. Outside of his professional career as a structural engineer in Calgary, Alex is also the Canadian representative for Caprinae Safaris. Alex, welcome to Spike Camp.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Very happy to have you here tonight. Maybe we'll just start off like we usually do. Dig into your personal history and your background a little bit. Tell us where did you grow up and how did you get into hunting?
Well, I'm a hybrid, if you want to look at it that way. Like you have the fanning sheep as a hybrid. I'm kind of a hybrid. My mom is Persian and my dad is a Turk. Now, Turk not from Turkey, Turk from Azerbaijan. So I was actually born in Tehran. And in 1961 and in 72, I left for England. I did all my high school bachelor's degree. And then in 1980, I went to Berkeley, did my master's, worked a few years, and then ended up in Canada in 94. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. And I've been working since 1980, pretty much. So 44 years.
Excellent. What was life like at Berkeley?
Interesting. Berkeley is an interesting place because you get a diverse, crowd, right? Academically, very, very good. And I actually do enjoy the Northern California lifestyle. I'm not talking about the nuts and fruit parts of it, but there's a lot of hiking. There's great mountain biking. Mountain biking hadn't actually started yet. It started like just about when I was finished, We used to go to Mount Tamalpais, ride down our, hardtail bikes, and we thought we knew it, but it was an interesting place at the time.
Yeah, it's funny. The reason I asked that is I have a small connection to Berkeley. So the company I work for, our North American headquarters are in the Bay Area, and a few years ago, we started putting some of our leadership team through an executive leadership program at Berkeley, and I got selected to do that, and it was a one-week course. Yeah, at the Haas School of Business. Yeah. And anyone that knows me knows that I really don't have much of a formal education at all. So Chuck Peeling going to Berkeley was like a sentence that just shouldn't be spoken. But I went to Berkeley, I did the course, and it was life-changing for me in the way I manage my business. And the whole community and the scene at Berkeley, even if you were to go to a tour, if you're ever down in the San Francisco area and you want something cool to do, you should check out that campus. It is really cool.
Totally, yeah.
That's awesome connection. So when did you start mountain hunting? At what point in your life did you get into it?
Well, that's for me, that's a loaded question. And I'll tell you why. Because in the culture that I grew up with my dad and uncle, for us, a true hunter was a chucker hunter, not a sheep or ibex hunter. If you could master the art of hunting wild chuckers in the mountains and be able to shoot them in the air, do doubles or triples, you were a master hunter. So that's what I consider mountain hunting. So I started chucker hunting. I used to tag along with my dad and uncle. Of course, I was too small to shoot a shotgun. But when I was 10, my uncle bought me a 16-gauge side-by-side, double trigger, a Saint-Étienne from France. And he taught me how to load my own shells. And the reason he did that, he wanted me to be frugal and not just waste ammunition. And these were brass shells, The whole thing was brass. Some old timers, if there's anyone listening, they might remember. So you put everything from the top, and then you kind of seal it with a candle, and you got to put it upside down in your belt, because otherwise everything falls out. So that's when I started mountain hunting, which was really for wild chuckers. But my first big game mountain hunt was when it was 1978, and it was in the western Persia. I actually got a Armenian mufla. So, and then I was going to school in England, so time was really tough, and I couldn't actually do any mountain hunting until coming to North America, basically, because England there's no mountain hunting. All I could do is shoot rabbits and pheasants, and that was an occasional thing because it's really meant for the elite, not for the average person. So that's when it started. And then once I came, in the States, I used to put in for many states, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. I would put in for just to get points for elk, deer, sheep. And then when I came to Canada, when I saw over-the-counter opportunities, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
So, and then plus, you've been there yourself. When you raise a family, you don't have as much time or disposable income to throw at sheep hunting, whether it's overseas or taking 2 weeks off in the Rockies. So, yeah.
So when you were in the U.S. then, what was the age frame where you're like from 20 to 30 years old?
From 20, yeah, that's about then, yes. From about 20 to about 33. Yes.
Okay. And how did you did you do a lot of hunt? I mean, obviously down here you put in for draws, but did you get to do some actual big game?
I did some hunting in California. I did in Idaho. I had a cousin who lived in Idaho. He still does. So I used to go there every year with hunt chuckers, mule deer, and I never drew a sheep tag because everything was by draw, and I would never dare to go to the Montana's Unlimited because it's an ordeal. You need horses, you need supplies, et cetera, et cetera. But I kept putting in for points, and I actually drew Arizona desert sheep, in 2019. Wow. So,
and how did that hunt go?
It went great. I mean, in the States, when you get a draw on sheep, it's typically 100%, unless you really know how to screw it up. And I got a very good old ram. I got a 12-year-old ram. Actually, it's on my wall here. It's probably one of my most praised sheep because my younger son was with me, and then there was a connection to my dad. Because I'll tell that a quick story. I mean, I don't want to take too much time.
No, please do.
I was going to Italy on business, and so this is July 1st, and July 1st is my dad's anniversary. So I had a dream that night that my dad was trying to tell me something. He said, "I have some news for you," and I said, "What is it?" And then I woke up in sweat. So in the morning, I didn't think much of it. I called my Cabela's credit card to tell them I'm going to Italy. Please don't block charges. And the girl said, "Yeah, sure." And then the girl says, "Well, sir, you have an outstanding balance here of $1,650 US." I said, "Well, I have never used that card for the past 2 months." She says, "No, it's here. Do you want to clear it? Because you're going to have to pay interest on it." I said, "Who made the charge?" And she said, "Arizona Fish and Game." And my heart just
bingo.
I screamed so hard. My wife was in the shower. She thought I had a heart attack. So that's why it was so special, because I really think, because I'm a believer in God, I'm a Catholic, and I really believe that gift came from my dad. No doubt about it. And I remembered him. I took my son with me. We had a toast for him, and it was a wonderful hunt.
So you were living in Alberta at the time?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So did you have to contract? I'm assuming you had to contract an outfitter, guide?
Well, in some states, you're going to have to. It's the law. Like in Wyoming is the law, New Mexico is the law, but in Arizona, you don't have to. The problem was the season is only 20 days, and I wasn't going to take a chance, try to do it all on my own. So I'm a sheep hunter, I know, but the thing is, when you get a local guide that knows the area, which I did, Craig Steele is his name, he knows everything about that zone. So I had him scout for me, and he set up a great camp. So I showed down there with my son, and 2 friends came along, and we had a blast.
I bet. Well, congratulations. That's a crazy story, though. But I can just imagine getting the call from the credit card company.
I mean, it just didn't make sense. And I didn't even believe her. I actually called Arizona Fish and Game and I said, look, is this true? And the gal says, well, we can't really tell you because the draw results are not out. But if your credit card got charged, I would say 95% you got drawn. So I said, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So then when you moved to Alberta, what was your first mountain hunt there? Was it sheep in Alberta?
Yeah. I spent 70 nights I got a total count, 70 nights in the mountains, some day trips too before I killed my first sheep. So I learned the hard way, or I shouldn't say the hard way. I did it on my own. And then I realized that you either have to be very lucky for sheep in Alberta because chances of success are low, or you need to have good friends who have horses. So that's the key. I think if you can get access to horses, your chances go up tremendously because then you can pack stuff, you can get in the backcountry, you can set up a camp, and then you can do day trips versus trying to haul everything on your back.
Yeah, and it's a lot different than BC, where BC you've got lots of lakes and airstrips, and in Alberta you've got a north and south crazy mountain range, and like you said, horses are really it. I talked to quite a few Alberta sheep hunters, and we're going to do our sheep camp later this year before opener, and we're going to have guests that are experts in kind of all the species. And I have a lot of admiration for Alberta sheep hunters that connect on bighorns just from those challenges alone. Limited access, lots of population. There's a lot of good sheep, but just getting to them and the competition that you guys have to face amongst each other, I think
it's gotten worse over the years because now you have Instagram and you got social media, and everybody wants to be a sheep hunter, right? So call Chris Jennett. Do you know Chris Jennett?
I've heard that name too.
Chris is a good friend of mine. He'll be a good guy to interview.
Okay. I might take you up on that. We're looking for perfect. Yeah, that would be great. Well, tell us a little bit about the first Alberta sheep hunt for you. That must have been a bit overwhelming, I'm sure.
Well, like any other sheep hunt, right? It's I call it the royal game, right? And it was a tough hunt. The one that I finally killed the sheep, it was a 10-day hunt. And I killed him on day 9. So it was very close. It was down to the wire. And I like to go sheep hunting in Alberta. You either go for the opener or you go late. Because the closer you get to the rut, your chances go up. So it was a wonderful hunt. I actually wrote a story about it in the Wild Sheep magazine. It's called the PJ Ran. So if you go back to 2010, 11, I think 11 maybe, winter issue, I think it's there. The story's there. So wonderful hunt, can't complain. Came home with a 10-year-old ram, broomed. He's almost not legal. He's like legal by about half an inch. That's how well groomed he was.
We'll have to dig that one up. Maybe you could flip it on our, post it on our platform.
Yeah, I have it on PDF. I can put it on. It's a good story.
I bet. Well, I know this, but I don't think our listeners or viewers know it, but you literally just got back a few days ago from a very, very cool hunt in Turkey. Maybe you could give us the short version of that hunt. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I know. I was actually hoping, if you remember, I send you a WhatsApp message from Turkey. Please put my segment on, on the 4th, because if you were going to do it on the 2nd, I would be probably falling asleep by now. So this was like I've always liked to hunt Turkey, and the issue with Turkey is that COVID put a lot of people back in the waiting list. Plus, the government has reduced the number of tags tremendously. Like before COVID, they were given about 400 tags a year. There's 7 regions in Turkey, so 400 tags distributed, among those areas. But now the tags, like this year, the number of tags was down to 174. So imagine you got 174 tags and you got the backlog from all these people who've paid deposits. So what are your chances of getting on a hunt, let alone getting on a cancellation hunt? So I was just sitting in my office. I think I sent you my report last night. I don't know if you saw it.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of doing my own. I'm working on a DAO project in Fort Saskatchewan, and then I get a WhatsApp message from my business partner. I should say my boss, Riza in Turkey. He says, "Hey, we just had a cancellation hunt for 3 weeks away." Honestly, it was 3 weeks away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a trophy area, but hey, you're going to get a super deal. Do you want to come? And it took me like 5 minutes. So it was a great hunt. It was a difficult hunt because generally the hunts that I had seen on YouTube or people who have talked to, most of the hunting in Turkey takes place in the Taurus Mountains. And Taurus Mountains are not too difficult. I mean, they're mountains, but they're manageable. My hunt was in the eastern part of Turkey, northeast, close to Georgia. So I wasn't hunting in the Tauruses. I was actually hunting in a range called the Kashgar, which are basically an extension of the Caucasus Mountains that come from Azerbaijan through Georgia. Very steep, very challenging. So I got more than what I bargained for. And it was a 5-day hunt. And my goal was to kill an old specimen, something good. I knew it was not going to be a trophy area. I went in there knowing that, and I gave it my best. I passed a bunch of billies, and of course the rut was over, so it was hard to see the billies. When the rut is on, which is December to mid-January, it's a totally different ball game. You can find them lower elevations. The snow pushes them down. Plus, they're chasing females. Mm-hmm. But I got connected on the last day with a pretty good representative specimen. I can't complain. So
I saw the picture. It's a beautiful, beautiful ibex. It was wonderful. How many species of ibex are there in Turkey? Just one?
In Turkey, realistically one. But of course, there's outfitters out there, which we don't do that. At Caprinae, we just say Bezor ibex. That's it. But you talk to some other outfitters, they got the eastern, I got the western, and they got the southern. It's all the same animal. It's just regional variations. Some get a little bit bigger, some get a little bit smaller, some a little bit darker, lighter. So in reality, you only have one ibex in Turkey.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Had you hunted in Turkey before? Was that your first one?
No, I've never hunted in Turkey. I really wanted to go, but like I said, booking one was hard, right? There was no tags and then expensive.
Yeah. Wow. Well, congratulations. I'm lucky enough to have been communicating with you on WhatsApp, so I've seen the photos, but we'll have to get, if you can, we'll have to get that on the international space on Spike Cam. You do a little story when you have time. That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to write an article about it eventually. We'll see where it gets posted. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Okay. Awesome. So, well, that's kind of a segue into like the first thing that I wanted to unpack with you. And for someone that's just starting to explore international hunting, especially when it comes to sheep and goat species, it's an overwhelming thing. Like I'm just starting down that journey myself, as you know, and
I know.
I've done a little bit of international hunting, in that I've done one trip to New Zealand, but ibex have been on my bucket list. Is it safe to say that that ibex would be, if you want to call it for lack of a better term, a pretty good gateway species for a new international hunter? Is that where you would guide them if someone came to you and said, "Hey, Alex, I want to start getting into this"? Where would you point them?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it would be either ibex or chamois. So chamois are smaller, right? You could say less majestic, but just as equally, beautiful and challenging, right? So I would say start with ibex or chamois and then go from there, because from a price standpoint, it's better, it's cheaper. And I actually find ibex hunting more fun and a lot more challenging than sheep. Sheep are a lot more predictable. They're a little bit more aloof. Ibex, no. Ibex are, they're, and then also the difference is ibex, this is actually was in my presentation. The billies stay with the females year round. Sheep don't. Sheep, the moment the rut is over, you get the bachelor groups of rams, ewes and lambs are separate, but not ibex. So, and the reason they do that is for herd security, right? Because there's always somebody watching. You hardly find a single ibex. They're always in groups and they're always looking. So that makes
Right.
their hunt a lot more challenging, especially when you go to the old world ibex, like Bezor ibex in Turkey or Central Asian ibex, Himalayan ibex. These animals have been hunted for 30,000 years. So their DNA is just imprinted with predator evasion, whether it's wolves or it's human beings.
Yeah.
So that's where I would start, 100%.
Okay. And then on the when it comes to the budget scale, is that sort of the starting point too? Would be Ibex?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it depends on the country, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your cheapest Ibex hunt would be in Kyrgyzstan, I would say. Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and Mongolia. Those would be the four in that order. And then, of course, in Europe, you also have Ibex. You have the Alpine Ibex. But Alpine Ibex, after Switzerland closed in 2020, we're only left with Austria. And to be honest, I mean, I've hunted in Austria, not for Ibex. I've hunted for chamois, but I've hiked extensively in Austria. I've hunted in Tyrol. I've hunted in Hochschwab, and you see the Ibex, and they looked, I don't want to say domestic, but they looked pretty dumb. So if the goal is to collect one, yes, go to Austria, and you're going to pay a premium. But if you want a challenging hunt, I wouldn't go to Austria. If you're young, you got the legs, and you want a challenging hunt, go to Kyrgyzstan, go to Tajikistan, go to the Pamirs, or go to Mongolia. Mongolia is my favorite, to be honest, because of the access. It's amazing country. You can get into sheep Ibex country with a vehicle. You don't need the horse travel like you do in Tajikistan and in Kyrgyzstan. And that saves you a lot of time, right? And typically you go earlier. You go September to early October because the season closes October 15th. So you don't have to deal with as much snow. And like I said, roads are good. Communication is good. They don't give a lot of tags. So the chances of finding a good trophy Ibex is good. And then if you want to come further west, you start in Turkey. You can actually hunt Ibex in Pakistan. That's one of the hunts we offer at Caprinae. We offer the Sin Ibex, which is a beautiful animal, and it's the terrain is not very challenging. They're in basically two mountain ranges. And then further west, you're going to come to Turkey. You can actually hunt them in Iran, and you can hunt them in Turkey. And that would be the Bezor Ibex. And then you also have Ibex in North Africa, but the only one that is possible, I think, is in Chad, which is not the Simian, it's the other one. The name will come to me, but very expensive. So,
and where would you on the budget scale, where would you rank the Spanish Ibex in that list?
Spanish would be kind of somewhere in the middle. Spanish would be, depends. The thing is, something really terrible happened in Spain. I think I mentioned that to you when we spoke. Because in Spain, you have two main Ibex species. You have the Spanish Ibex and you have the Gredos Ibex. The Spanish Ibex, you also call it Besaita Ibex. So the Besaita last year, they got scabies, and a lot of them were culled or died. So what that did is that they kind of shut down the hunt, so that the demand on Gredos Ibex went up. And then you also have regional variations of the Spanish Ibex. In the south, you have the southwest, southeastern, and then you have the Ronda Ibex. But the Ronda, southeastern, they're really Spanish Ibex. So, I mean, Ronda, you're going to pay more because it's a smaller area. Then you probably pay more, a little bit less for Gredos, and in that scale. And then the hope is that populations come back, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like they have they have a pretty good handle on the management on the conservation side of things there too. So that's good. Some of the listeners know this, but I reached out to you a couple months ago about Spanish Ibex because I just wanted to kind of start somewhere, and I have the luxury of travel through business into Spain on a frequent basis. So planned this trip, and super easy. It was really easy. You connected me with your buddy Val from Ibex Hunt Spain there, and We're doing one of the southern subspecies, I guess you call it, based out. We're going to fly into Madrid and go from there. So it's going to be fun. We're really excited, and obviously it doesn't sound like it's an extremely difficult, physically challenging hunt. It's when I spoke to him, he basically said, we got 5 days to hunt, but you should be tagged out in 3.
Yes.
You should have a good opportunity at least within those 3 days.
You will. You definitely will, because the game warden will come with you, because you're kind of paying for a class of Ibex, there's a representative, bronze, silver medal. So the game warden has to be there. Otherwise, you may shoot the wrong animal, and then you're going to end up paying more, right? Plus, they will look like it might come to a point where he says, I want you to shoot that Ibex who's got a broken leg, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to listen to what he says.
Yeah.
And Val is a seasoned guide. I've been on several hunts with him, and I trust him like a brother. So he will take care of you.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. He's super busy right now because it's a busy season for him, but he's been really easy to get, communicate with, and we're all set, good to go. We got our flights pretty well booked and everything already. So I'm awesome. Jacked about that. It's going to be fun.
Take your wife with you. There's lots to do.
Yeah, she's coming for sure. She's coming with me on it's a business trip as well, but we're going to make a little holiday out of it. I got a gazillion points with the airline, so we're going to bring her along. So yeah, and that's my wife doesn't hunt, but she wants to come along for the adventure, so it should be a great time.
She will love it. I guarantee you, she's going to tell you, "Take me back, John. I want to go back to Spain."
No, yeah, for sure. We've been to Spain quite a bit, and we haven't done a hunt yet. So yeah, we'll circle back to this a little bit later in the interview, but back to the challenges for a new international hunter when it comes to making the decisions and the choices. It's difficult. I mean, you've got so many challenges when you're, first of all, where to begin, right? When I look at the amount of countries that like Caprinae offers on that brochure that you sent me, it's staggering. And then the species and different combinations of hunts that are available. It really, what that told me was you really need to have a representative that understands and specializes in that sector to really walk you through it and help you with that journey, because I could see this being an incredibly expensive mistake for people that try to, do too much on their own, right?
Yeah. No, lots of people have been burned, I don't want to mention names here, but there's been outfitters who've taken people's money and haven't delivered. So you got to go with a reputable outfitter. You got to talk to people who have hunted with them, get references, interviewed them, drill them, and then hopefully everything will come together. Even that, there's never any guarantees, So
for sure, yeah. There's a host of challenges, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you go international, you have to have a little paradigm shift in your thinking. Things don't operate the same, like I was going on a 5-day hunt in Mongolia last year, and when we got there early morning. We were supposed to get on a flight to go to Altai City. There was no flights. The flights were canceled. So I lost 1 day just like that. And to drive with an 18-hour drive. So you got to prepare yourself mentally. There will be challenges, guaranteed. Your luggage may not show up, your rifle may not show up. But if to have the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. So if you want to experience it, you got to be open, and you got to be flexible, and hopefully go with a good outfit that knows what they're doing. And then if you do that, then trust your guide, because most of the time they want to be successful, because if they're not successful, then they know they're going to get a bad rap. So
yeah, news travels fast.
It does,
especially in our industry. How did you end up getting connected as the rep for Caprinae? Because you, like me, you have a full-time job and a career. How did that happen?
I've known him for years. I've seen him at the sheep show. I mean, I would say as far back as 2010. I typically go to Reno every year, and we become friends. I've referred clients to them, and I booked my Mongolia hunt with him. I almost booked Azerbaijan with him, but it got canceled. And then it came to a point where they actually came to me and said, you know what, we would like you to represent us in Canada and the US. And they do have other agents in the US, but nobody in Canada. And I said, why not? So, I mean, I've been in this game long enough. I know the ins and outs, right? I know what is good and what is not. So it's been good. You know, I've helped them, and they just took care of me. The hunt that I went on, both my partners came along. They didn't have to, but they came along because they wanted to keep my company so we can have a good time and create memories. So, and everybody that I've sent to them prior to being their agent has had nothing but good things to say. You know, transparency, 100%, no bullshit, no lying, no taking people's money. You know, even I remember 4 years ago, when I was reaching to Rizza to book a Bezoar hunt. He said, "Listen, Alex, I can take your money, but I can tell you right now, you're going to be in line. Do you want that?" I said, "No." So that tells me something about an integrity of a company.
So, can you tell us a little bit how Caprinae is structured? Are they essentially an agent themselves for a lot of these hunts, or do they own territories, or are they specialized? Like, how does that all work?
Well, like nobody really, like in Turkey, they outfit directly in Turkey, and we have local guides that we hire, and English-speaking, interpreters that go with hunters. So that's for Turkey. Outside of Turkey, like if we hunt Mongolia, we always send a PH along. On these high-profile hunts, we typically send, typically Riza goes, or Mehmet goes, or I might start going when I'm retired. Because you want to make sure that everything goes 100%. But even on the less expensive hunts, on the Ibex hunts, there always will be somebody who speaks English and knows Caprinae and is being vetted, and so on and so forth. Same thing with Tajikistan. Same thing with other parts of Europe, like in Romania, we have chamois hunts, right? Spain, we don't do it Caprinae because there's enough outfitters, in Spain. Austria, like I said, Italy, we don't. In France, we do a couple of chamois in France, and let's see what else. And then that's about it. Central Asia. Most of our business is Central Asia and Asia Minor, Pakistan. Pakistan, we offer several hunts. We have Sindh Ibex, we have Blandford Uriel, we have Punjab Uriel, we have 3 different markhors. Very expensive. I call it the postgraduate of mountain hunting.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and then we also do blue sheep and Himalayan ibex. So Pakistan is probably our number one destination for the number of species available, and then Mongolia.
Well, that's great. Lots of good coverage there. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, if do you get clients? I'm sure you do. People that come to you and say, there's so many things on your list or available hunts available through Caprinae. I want to map out like a multi-year plan. Is that something you guys entertain? You'll work, I'm sure, as an agent, you would love that, right?
I mean, we do, but typically people who come to us, they're already established hunters, right? So they're missing a few species, so they come to, they don't really come for a long-term plan, and most of our clients are, return customers because we treat them well. Like I said, transparency, no bullshit, no lies, no hanky-panky stuff. So, and we're honest. If, like for example, a markhor hunt is very difficult in terms of, I'm not talking about the difficulty of getting to the markhor. That's a different story. I'm talking about the tags, because the government of Pakistan and Tajikistan, they auction these tags. I think it's next month, maybe in April or May. So we don't know how many tags they're going to give. Typically, it's not more than 4 per species. And it's an auction. So we have, that's why in our brochure, we say, for price, we say, give us a call. We can tell you how much it was last year, but we don't know how much it's going to go for this year. So that's what I talk about when I say transparency. We don't just butter our clients so that they book in, and then we tell them, oh, sorry, this thing is $50,000 more, right? We try to be honest with them and tell them exactly what the story is. So
Wow.
that's the way it goes. It's
So
not an easy way to do business when you don't know how much you're going to be paying for the tax, or whether you're going to be able to get it, because there's competition out there. There's Mongol Tours, there's Karakai Khan, there's everybody and their brother are bidding on these tags, right? So
is it just for the marker species, or does that apply with some
No.
sheep as well?
Yeah, blue sheep, even the Blanford Oriole, Sind Ibex. Like this year, we're pretty much sold out for the number of tags we think we're going to get. And if we sell a hunt and we can't deliver, we'll tell the hunter right away, I'm sorry, we're going to have to postpone it for next year. So Turkey is the same thing. Turkey next month, I think in May, the auctions start. And then whatever tags we get, we typically try to take about 20 to 25 tags every year, because more than that is going to be difficult to manage. And we bid, and we try to, like I said, we try to be honest with our clients. This is how much the tag is, and it may not be what we think it is. It might be a little bit higher, so we'll let you know. So,
right.
And then we have to pay for those tags ahead of time, right, before we even sell the hunts.
Yeah, I was going to say that was my next question. So, Caprinae bids on them and competes in the auction, and then takes that risk and gamble on the price and hope you can sell them. But I guess if there's a limited amount of tags available and it's that competitive, people will know who won the tag and they'll come to you, right?
Exactly.
That's probably
Turkey
how it
is
works.
such a desired destination. We don't have any trouble selling.
Right.
It's backed up already.
Yeah. Clay from our audience has asked a question here with regards to Turkey. Are the territories to hunt Ibex in Turkey public land, privately owned, or how does that work?
I would say 95% they're public land. It's we don't have to ask permission for a landowner to go, because what happens is even if you have to cross private land, the game warden is coming with you, and those people are compensated. The money that you spend towards the tag, part of it actually goes for conservation, part of it goes back to the village. And I saw this firsthand, because we paid the village I stayed. We paid. We paid for the horse that took our stuff. We paid for the driver. We paid for the village. We paid the game warden. So there's no issues. It's all spoken for. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You just show up, basically.
Wow, that's awesome. When you bring up international hunting in conversation with hunters that have never done it before, there's a few I'm sure you get it when you do the trade shows, you get the top 5 or 6 questions, right, that come up. And I'm one of the guys that asks them. So, the first one, if you're looking at, Central Asia hunts, or any of, for that matter, any of the hunts, what advice do you offer people when it comes to the weapon? Like that seems to be the biggest question is, do you bring your own rifle? Do you rent a rifle? We've heard all kinds of stories on that. Well,
if you go to Central Asia, I would 100% take my rifle, because you can't trust what the outfitters have. They may say something. I'm talking about the local people. Ammunition may not be the same. I would not risk it. And taking a rifle there is not a big deal, as long as you go with a reputable outfitter who can get your gun permit in time, who registers it with the police, and who walks you through the customs, etc., etc. If you were to hunt in Europe, I would say I would not take my rifle, because taking a rifle to Europe is problematic. And if you go to Central Asia, I've said this before in my reports, that only go with Turkish Airlines, because Turkish Airlines, they cater hunters. They're familiar with all the rules. They carry a rifle, no problem. Even in Turkey, you can't borrow a rifle. You have to take your own rifle in, and you have to take it out. And then because these hunts are expensive, so you need to do everything you can to maximize your chances. You might get, because of weather or conditions, you may get 2 or 3 opportunities, tops. I'm talking like, say, Kyrgyzstan, right? It's a difficult place to go. There's the mountains are very challenging, and there's snow, and you might get 1 or 2 chances, and the game is very spooky. So I suggest take your own rifle, take more power than you need. Bob Anderson, who's a friend of mine, who's written, all those great books, Great Rams 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Snow, Dust, and Wind. He has a chapter, and I think I forgot the title. I think he maybe called it Central Asian Battery or something. He recommends, and I strongly agree, that you should take a strong flat shooting magnum, like a 300, something that you can comfortably shoot, but take extra horsepower, because the game is very tough. Shooting distances are typically long because the terrain is open. Sometimes you might get lucky. You might get a close shot. But generally, distances start at 400, 500 yards. It's just the nature of the terrain and the animals. Like I said, Ibex are in herds. There's one of them looking, so the chances of you getting to 200-yard shot, it's very slim.
Yeah. Not a lot of cover to work with. You got a lot of eyeballs. You've got very spooky animal that are getting chased all the time. It's good advice.
Yeah. And then, you're not interested in meat when you go to Asia, these places.
No.
I mean, the last thing you want to worry about is the meat, a bit of meat damage. So give them more than they need. I strongly suggest the 300 with a 200 grain bullet, that can just knock them flat.
Mm-hmm. What's your personal rifle of choice when you do these hunts?
Well, I take my 300. I've taken 270, I've taken 280, but I learned the hard way.
Is that right?
I would never never be undergunned. I'll always be overgunned, and make sure you practice with that. Practicing off a bench for mountain hunting is useless. You have to grab your rifle, go to the mountains, shoot in awkward positions, downhill, uphill, put it next to a tree, put it on a pack, put it on a bipod, and then just don't shoot at targets. Pick a target, pick a rock, shoot at the rock. See if you can tear it apart. And practice. Make sure you if you use the factory ammo, make sure you know your ballistics. If you have a hand load, make sure you have a turret. Turret costs $100. Don't be cheap on $100. Not ordinary turret. Try to do the manipulation in your head. Take a turret that works. Try it before you go and increase your chances.
Yeah. It's up to you to do everything you can to limit the chance of a miss or a bad shot or whatever, right?
Yes.
When you go on these trips, what does your gear list look like? Do you have sort of a standard gear list of things that you take as far as optics? And I'm sure the clothing is a layering system, right?
Yeah, of course. The standard, but I've actually, I got a list and I kind of manicure it to every hunt I go. So like in Turkey, I knew we're going to stay in camps, or I'm talking about like villages or in shepherd's cabin. So I didn't need any sleeping gear. But I have a general one, and like I said, over the years, I've kind of perfected it. I've sent it to a lot of friends. They use it. I'm glad to share it. That you can put it on your platform if you wish.
It'd be great.
There's little things. Mountain hunting in remote places, you kind of have to be the jack of all trades. Like, one advice I have, if you go on these trips, always take a backup scope. Always. Because, the terrain is very forgiving. You slip or you come off the horse, you bang your scope. That's the end of your hunt, because by the time you get back, the hunt is over. So I always take a backup scope. I take tools for taking the rifle apart, cleaning tools. What else? Things to do with the rifle. Extra swivels, right? If you're using clips, take 2 or 3 clips. I've lost one myself, and I never take a clipped rifle with me anymore. I have a drop plate, because the chances of losing your rounds are a lot less like that. And I have the gear list. If you want, I can give it to you, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Little things.
Well, I can tell you, this is this is night 3 of our international series, as you know, and the big takeaways for me so far, and I know a lot of people have had a lot of text messages the last couple of days. The tips and tricks that we're getting from all of our guests, yourself included, the big things are not, they're no surprise, right? Learn how to shoot 500 yards. If you should anyway, right? Because if you wound something at 200, you might have to make a follow-up shot at 5. So everybody should be capable to that kind of range. But what we're finding out is the little things are the really important ones. That's the gold in the whole process, whether it's insect protection or, last night, Mark was saying he likes to bring on some of his hunts, he brings cheaper optics for his guides because they don't even have them. It's the little things like that.
Always. He's right. Or you know what? Another one of my favorites, 2 rangefinders. If your rangefinder craps out, your hunt is done because you're not going to get it. You're not going to be able to judge in the mountains when you got a valley in front of you and the other side. You're always going to overjudge. If there's no valley and it's the other way around, you're going to underjudge. So take 2 rangefinders. Make sure they can compensate for angle, right? Because chances are you're going to be shooting most of the time downhill or sometimes uphill, like the case was for me in Turkey or in Mongolia. So you're not going to get an easy, typical elk or whitetail or mule deer shot. It's going to the shot making is going to be the most difficult part. And typically, like I said, you get 1-2 chances and that's it. So yeah, double rangefinder.
Yeah, that's great tips. Another question just popped up from Clay, which was actually the next question I was going to ask. I added a few questions in the last hour, Alex, so I'm kind of springing them on you. We're freestyling, remember? What about travel insurance and things like that? Or is that something you recommend?
I do. I mean, I always register with Global Rescue because I'm going to give you an example of Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan, it took us 2 days to get to our main camp, flying, driving, and then driving again. From our main camp to our spike camp was 28 kilometers on horseback. Something happens over there. What are you going to do? You're going to ride back 28 kilometers. It takes you a whole day. So it's best to have that. It's very cheap insurance, Global Rescue. For a week, I think it's like $150, $200, but it gives you that peace of mind. Definitely take a sat phone or some kind of communication, because if you don't have the sat phone or like an inReach, they won't even insure you because they need to have 2-way communication with you to find out what kind of help you need. Some of you who've been, I know some of you may know who Clay Lancaster is. Clay is he's a BC boy, I think. He guides in the territories and also in in Mexico. So Clay was guiding a bunch of people in Kyrgyzstan a few years ago, and he got into serious trouble. And his sat phone died. It was a miracle that he survived, and other people who were in his group died there. So Google "I Shouldn't Be Alive" by Clay Lancaster. Watch it on YouTube, and that kind of puts things in perspective. How many things can go wrong? Stuck vehicles, crash helicopters, etc., etc. So be prepared for the worst, but it may not happen. But if it does, like I never leave my sleeping bag away from me, just in case if the vehicle, I don't put it in the vehicle that is coming behind. I have it with me. What if the vehicle breaks down and you're going to have to spend the night? You need to sleep. You need to have some food with you, right? You need that sat phone or the inReach.
It's all gold, Alex. These are great things to consider. On that same safety and medical theme, what about like vaccinations or shots or preventative stuff like that? What do you suggest there?
Yeah, I mean, I travel for work to India and Philippines and stuff. So I've already got all my shots. But if you haven't traveled outside of North America, you should go to a travel clinic, get all your shots. And on my gear list, you will see a list of drugs that I recommend.
I was going to ask that next. Medical list.
So like if you go to Tajikistan, you should have Dimox because you may not be tolerant of the altitude. I killed my Ibex at 4,650 meters, not feet. So if you can't handle that, your hunt is over, right? So take Dimox, take 2-3 different kind of antibiotics. One little advice: we're talking about a gear list. And this applies to any hunt you do outside of North America. Take prescription sleeping pills. Prescription sleeping pills. You're going to have jet lag. You won't be able to sleep on the plane. When you get there, you want to be able to reset quickly. And that sleeping pill, as much as I hate pills, is gold because it pushes you to sleep. So the next morning when you get up, you can start hunting versus just dozing off, on a horse or in the back of a Jeep. So when I give you the gear list, you will see I have antibiotics. You need antibiotics for your stomach because a lot of times when you get stomach viruses from bad food or, dirty surroundings, you don't need Pepto-Bismol. You need antibiotics to take care of it for your stomach.
It's got to act quickly. Yeah.
Absolutely. It has to kill it. So that the thing is, your time is limited, right? You're going on a 5-day hunt. You're not going to sit in a tent for 5 days. You got to be able to get back on your feet and go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I travel a lot internationally for work. Like sometimes it's up to 6 months of the year that I'm traveling. So I have a lot of experience with jet lag and, third world countries and that kind of thing. And I've developed a little bit of a system for travel. Luckily for me and my job, I'm allowed to fly business class. And if anybody has to do a trip of that nature and you can afford to pay or get a deal or use points or whatever, my recommendation is if you can lay down on a 12-hour flight, and in some of these locations you're going to have coming from Canada, you're going to be 10 or 11 hours to your first point, and then you're going to have to take another flight for another 9 or 10 hours.
That's it.
Case in point is Turkey, if you're going to try and save some money. And it sounds staggering, but on the price of things, but when you look at it, at least on the front side, I would highly recommend try to fly at least premium economy. And my trick or my workaround for jet lag on those flights is I will try to get on a flight where when I'm on the plane, I'm immediately trying to sleep on the destination's time zone, even if it's for a couple hours. And I'll take something when I'm on the plane, whether it's melatonin or something. You can't travel with CBD. It's not permitted, but there's lots of things to help you get that first amount of sleep. And that's my little tip just from, doing this for so many years. But there's nothing worse than a stomach virus on a trip. Like it'll ruin your trip, whether it's vacation, business or a hunt, right?
Yeah. It's no rehearsals. That's it. You get one chance to go and get the job done. So
yeah. And if you're flying Turkish Airlines through Istanbul, another travel tip is book your flight so you have some time in the Istanbul Turkish Airlines lounge, because there's nothing else like that one, right?
There's no airport like it.
It's an amazing airport.
Like you, there's no airport like it in terms of facilities and choices.
Yeah. Yeah, that lounge is incredible. It's the biggest lounge, and it's not the biggest one in the world, but it's certainly one of the top 3, I think, as far as what's available. There's like 8 different cuisines you can get there, and a whole other story. But anyway, back to the questions here. What about traveling from a personal security aspect when you're going through some of these countries? Is there any tips or tricks for that? Because a lot of times you're on your own. Well, most of the time you're on your own until you get in contact with your outfitter or your guide, right? Like, is there any certain countries you want to be a little more careful with?
I mean, I've traveled to most of these countries, and I mean, for the most part, there's been no issues. We've actually had, because a lot of people they're afraid of traveling in Pakistan, right? Pakistan is a hotspot for terrorism, but when you travel to Pakistan, you're going to have like RPH meeting you at the airport. He could even meet you probably in Turkey, travel with you, and then you're going to have like police cars escorting you to your hunting destination. So you're not just getting on the bus or public transport or hiring a local driver. It's all contained. Same thing with with Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Mongolia. Like we didn't have any problem. The outfitter met us in the airport, cleared the rifles through VIP or otherwise. Like Mongolia doesn't have VIP. And then we sat in our comfortable Land Cruisers and off we went. So far, I haven't had any personal issues, nor have had any of our clients or friends. Because like I said, we vet these local guys before we engage with them, right? I mean, the guy that outfitted me in Mongolia, he outfitted Donald Trump Jr. So
okay,
I figured if you could outfit Donald Trump Jr., I'll probably be okay. And I was. And
Should be
there was no
fine.
issues anyways.
Yeah. No, that's great. Another question here from our group. Are hiking poles on your list? Because these are mountain hunts. Are you packing poles? Yeah.
100%. Well, as you know, you've probably seen in my pictures, I actually carry an ice axe because I've
Yeah.
had back surgery and then I blew my ACL and I've had 2 knee surgeries on my left knee. So I prefer personally an ice axe, a long one. You can get one that is 1 meter long from a company in Seattle. So I prefer that because it has multi-uses, right? It's a walking pole. I generally, when there's a rifle on my shoulder, it's hard to walk with 2 poles because typically you're holding on one hand on your stock, and then your other hand is your pole. So I personally like the ice axe, like I said, because it has multiple uses. I even built a little gizmo that kind of attaches to it that I can use as a shooting rest. And it's a weapon, and then if you need to dig a hole, it's there. So that's what I recommend. But poles work too. Some people prefer the poles, and that's fine. But do take something, yes.
Yeah, I started like on my sheep hunts and pretty much in all my mountain hunts now. Last year, I purchased a. We got Shane Pallister, one of our members, who's desert sheep guy, a very well-known sheep hunter. He's signing off. Thanks, Shane. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. He's going to be on our show here for Sheep Camp in a few months. He's going to be our desert sheep expert coming on, so it'll be great to get him on. But yeah, I started carrying. It's basically an ice axe, carbon fiber ice axe by a company called. It's a mountain stick, and it's out of New Zealand. It's a little pricey, but it's telescopic. It's very durable, and it's got all those. It's like a multi-tool, basically.
Yeah.
And I keep one trekking pole in my backpack, and I run that. Use it almost like I use it for everything from a cane because I'm an old man to a trekking pole to get me up the mountain. It helps when you're clearing a site for your tent. Like you said, there's a million different uses for those. And I see more and more trekking pole companies are coming out with them now. With a version of an ice axe. So yeah, I'm with you in that camp, Alex, for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Adam Foss, who I'm good friends with Cam. Adam, I know him, but we're not buddies. But Adam said something really cool. He said everything that you have in your pack for mountain hunting, it's got to have more than one purpose. And there's the ice axe, because the ice axe is 10 purposes.
Endless, yeah. I mean, really. Yeah, for sure. I'm just curious, what happens to the meat on some of these Central Asian hunts when you're in the extreme backcountry like that?
Trust me, all of it gets used. I'm talking, when I say all, I'm not talking about just internal organs. The caul, the caul fat, it's like that membrane. They take that, testicles, the blood. In Tajikistan, they even save the blood, yes, because they boil it, turn it into a soup. So the locals will handle all the meat, and when we were in Kyrgyzstan, our camp conditions was very difficult. I'm talking, we hardly had any food. We just had a bunch of stale bread, one little stove to boil tea. There was nothing to burn, and I think on day 5, my buddy Carl shot an Ibex. And there was 4 guys, there was a game warden, and there was 3 of us. In one day, these guys ate the whole Ibex. I mean, we ate 2, ate the whole animal. There was nothing left, just like
really?
wolves. They were gorging themselves. So your meat is not going to go to waste. They know how to take care of it, and they probably cook some for you. Now, you're not going to get your medium rare steak. Because, like I said, in Kyrgyzstan, we didn't even have a fire. It was all boiled meat, right?
Yeah.
But it's all good. And overall,
but that's
outside of North America, people don't eat medium rare or rare meats. They're all afraid they're going to get sick. So everything is going to be well done. So get prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that too in my travels. And that actually is a great segue into my next question is, on the diet side of things. I've talked to a few guys that have done some of these trips, and they tend to pack some of their own food, whether it's the snacks or even some dehydrated food, just because, that's the other side of this, right? When you travel internationally, you have your diet and your cuisine at home, and your body is used to that, and your taste is accustomed to it. When you get into some of these countries, you have to eat their cuisine. My first trip to India, I love Indian food, but here we'll have Indian food once a month, maybe, right? When you go on a 15-day trip in India, you're not finding many cheeseburgers there. Let's just say that, right? For obvious reasons. What do you suggest or recommend for people with some of these hunts, as far as bringing some food of your own?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea, because if you go there and the food is good, you eat it. If it's not, you eat your own food, and at the end of the day, you give it as a gift. If when you're leaving, so do take some dry freeze food. One thing that I've kind of learned over the years is, first of all, don't go to any mountain hunt lean. It's okay to have some extra weight, because chances are you're going to lose some weight. 100%. I lost 15 pounds in Kyrgyzstan, and I'm not that fat. So go a little bit, extra on your belly. It doesn't matter. You're going to lose it. And I like to take fat and protein with me, because the reason for that is, on mountain hunts, you typically you destroy a lot of your cells. And to build cells back up, you need the fat and you need the protein. More than anything, more than sugar or carbs. So research what gives you the highest fat and the highest protein per gram. So one of them is Parmesan cheese. I'm not talking about the Kraft, real Parmesan, like a block. I sometimes take a block of Parmesan with me, and I just bite it. Yes. And then if I take any bars, it's always be protein bars with high fat, because you will crave fat, right? In these hunts, you will crave fat. And then also eat the fat of the animal. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you made a very good point about going into the hunt with, a storage capacity maxed out on calories of your own, right?
Yeah.
I had a situation a few years ago. I trained too hard on a sheep hunt. I was really proud of myself, because I got down to this, probably the lightest I've ever been in my, since I was 20. And I had my food all measured out. And after about 5 or 6 days, I was bonking. I was losing energy. I wasn't feeling well. And I realized that I was starting to go caloric deficit. And I didn't do that. Now what I do is I'll try to stay active and train as much as I can. And then a couple of weeks before the hunt, your body's strong, you're healthy, your cardio's good. Just bulk up a little, 3 or 4 extra pounds. Like you said, you lose a pound a day or more when you're active in the mountains, right? It's a good tip. Yeah. Awesome. Let's talk about the trophies themselves, and the, trophy care, trophy handling, taxidermy, shipping, all of that. What is your go-to? Are you leaving the trophies behind, or are you bringing them home and having your taxi do them here?
Well, I mean, there's a few aspects to your question. First of all, I don't trust any taxidermy done outside of North America, because outside of North America, taxidermy as a shoulder mount is not common. Europeans, like best European taxidermists, they do a very lousy job, because everybody wants a Euro mount in Europe, right? And forget about Asia. Africa is okay. Africa, you can use there, because they've been doing taxidermy for many years. But the first thing is you have to know what you can bring in with yourself. Your best bet is to bring it with you, if you can get the paperwork done in time. So I can tell you what countries. In Kyrgyzstan, it's possible. You can have it done quickly while you're there and bring the trophy with you. Tajikistan, possible. Mongolia, not possible, because they need like a month to do the paperwork after your hunt. Turkey could be possible, if you get a week or two after your hunt, and if you have a good outfitter who doesn't want to just, charge you money because he wants to make money on shipping, it's possible. And then you also need to check the animal that you're bringing in, because all these animals, they have a different CITES category. Okay, CITES categories go for 1, 2, 3. So 1, I think, is the worst, which means you can't import it. You can't export it or import it. Example would be, say, bongo, okay, or
Okay.
snow leopard. So there's no way you can get an animal out. There's no way you can get an export CITES out. But most of the mountain hounds, like sheep, ibex, they're category 2 or 3. And from Canada, we're very lucky because our government allows us to bring this in. When I say lucky, I'm not talking about Trudeau lucky. I'm talking about just lucky in the sense that they allow it, right? So like it's not the case in the US. US, you have to go through Fish and Wildlife. You need an import CITES permit. And guess what? Since 2018, nobody's been able to bring anything out of Central Asia. Sheep, not ibex, sheep. They're all sitting in warehouses because Fish and Wildlife has not been giving them CITES permit. So do your homework. Whoever needs advice, you can talk to me. I can tell them what they need to do, who they need to write emails to. Because what you need an email from Environment Canada that says the animal you're bringing in with the vernacular name and with the Latin name does not require an import CITES permit from Canada. And you show that when you show up in Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver. Show that to the officer and you bring it in. So your best bet is always make arrangements, talk to people who have done it, bring it with you. Because if you leave it there, it's going to cost you a couple of $1,000 because it has to be done with an exporting company. And then when it shows up, it doesn't come to your door. You have to have a broker to bring it in because it gets hung up in Canada Customs on the first port of entry. So you need a broker from this side. So you will save yourself a lot of time and money. And plus, you know what you bring in. There's been several cases with crook outfitters where they've switched trophies, right? Capes, horns, etc. And also learn to cape your own. I mean, most of these guys know how to do it, but not all of them. You know, you may get a shitty guide or a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, may ruin your cape. So learn how to do it yourself, or at least watch them if they're going wrong. Take some Havalon blades with you. Take a knife and blades with you in case they don't have it, so you can actually use it and then give it to them. And then the gear list that I'm going to give you, at the very end of it, I put a little diagram, okay? That diagram is very important because it shows you 2 measurements that you need to take before you cape your animal, okay? Your taxidermist, if it's a good taxidermist, will need those 2 measurements. One is the distance from front of the eye to the tip of the nose, and the other one is the circumference around the neck. Because if you don't have those, then chances are, because your taxidermist is going to buy a form, run-of-the-mill form. If he has those measurements, he can build it up ahead of time. So when you get your cape tan, it goes in there smoothly. And then the animal looks kosher. Sometimes you see, you go to some people's homes and their sheep looks like domestic sheep because the taxidermy job was terrible and they didn't have the measurements, right? So
sure, yeah, good stuff. There are a few companies that handle the import. I've used one in Vancouver a couple of times now. It's Ron's Wildlife Services. I think they call them Trophy Shipper, and they're very good. They specialize in handling that import side of things. Question for you then. These are all things that the average or the new international hunter would find pretty overwhelming things you got to consider. And like anything, this starts to scare people a little bit when they're planning these hunts. Is it safe to say that this is part of the, when I come to Alex to book my Mongolian hunt or wherever it is this part of the service that, we can expect from you as far as the advice goes and all these little details? Is that something 100%. You guys are there for?
100%.
Yeah.
As you've noticed, I actually chronicle and, make reports of all my hunts plus the articles. And I try to put all the information in there, from gear to calibers to what to expect to what happened, etc., etc. So I always share that. And I mean, I've given that most of my reports to friends, right? And there's nothing proprietary in there. It's meant to be shared, right? So the more you know, the less chance of getting into trouble with things or getting surprises, right? Oh, I didn't know this. Oh, I didn't know that, right? So
Exactly. And I think that's, again, it speaks to the value in using a very well-known either booking agent or outfitter. Focus on that more than you would on the price, because that's the first thing people ask is, what's this
absolutely.
cost? Well, what's it going to cost you if you never see your sheep and you spent, 50 grand to do this trip?
Yeah.
You never see it, or you get it back and your sheep looks like, Bob's goat from the farm next door. I mean, yeah, I don't think people, a lot of people really need to think hard about this and sort of budget this whole thing into your entire trip, right? That's the thing. It's not just a hunt; it's an experience. Then you're going to have a trophy for a lifetime and all the memories. You got to really take your time to, map out all those little things. And that, honestly, that's why we're doing the series. It's the little things. We want to ask these questions.
If you don't take care of little things, they're going to turn into big things, right? It's like an ingrown nail. Like one of the things I have on my gear list is a good nail clipper, and clip your nails before you go on a sheep hunt. Because if you get, you're going to be doing a lot of downhills and uphills, your feet are going to torpedo in your boot. And if you get an ingrown nail, your hunt could be over, right? Or you'll be in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
So you're right. Take care of little things.
Blake, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're doing good. About an hour 20 right now. And
awesome. Okay.
Alex, I see two quick questions from Clay. Maybe I'll just ask you so you can answer for him. He asked one, are they allowed to use helicopters as a means of transport? And then the second one, I think you spoke a little bit on it earlier in terms of the sort of security protocols for some of these countries, but is it ever necessary to have armed security in any of the regions where you might go hunting?
Okay, the first question was, let me see if your first question was
helicopters.
About using helicopters for transport.
Yes, I mean, in Tajikistan, there are people who have used helicopters, but it's going to cost you a fortune, So there's not that many helicopters in these Asian countries to begin with. So chances
do you want to get on one?
Yeah, and then they're old Russian helicopters. There's been accidents, so I personally don't recommend it. And plus, the idea of these hunts is not just to go kill something; it's to get immersed in the culture. So when you do these road trips, like in Tajikistan, we were on the road 2 days from the capital to get just to the village, but we saw half the country. You stop in these villages and you stay there and you talk to people and you buy little gifts. And so I mean, that's part of the fun. Same in Mongolia. We traveled 700 kilometers in the car and we saw things that I would have never seen. We saw the Mongolian camels, right? Double hump. We saw wolves. We saw, they're vultures that you would never otherwise see if you were just, traveling in a helicopter or a plane. So allow yourself more time. Don't be on a schedule to get it over with, because there's more to it than just the hunt itself. If you're willing to be open-minded, try things, you're going to come back as a better person, in my opinion. And then talk about security. The only country that like I said, I mentioned in Pakistan, if you travel north, there's typically will be a escort with you, and that's just for insurance. We've never had, like with the clients we've sent hundreds of people to Pakistan. There's never been a security issue. But just for peace of mind, the police typically escorts you. And the thing is with Pakistan, for example, these hunts are administered by local conservancies, villages, families, like the Bhutani family that we deal with for Blanford, Oriel, and for Sindh Ibex. They have a big stake in this. The last thing they want is a security incident. So they put tons of, when you go in Pakistan, you got an entourage of 10 people following you, from spotters to porters to people with firearm, people with, Kalashnikovs, right? Just in case, right? But we've never had an issue. You would think in Pakistan, we've never had an issue.
Yeah, good point. And, honestly, I see where Clay was headed with that. I mean, some countries are certainly have a little higher security alerts, on the color scales, orange, yellow, red, etc. And, anything can happen anywhere. I've had incidents, traveling in Central and South America, just, make a wrong turn and you're in a really scary part of the city, and all of a sudden, what do you do? So
Sure.
yeah, I think it's certainly worth asking the question, though, for sure.
No, 100%. I mean, you got to be vigilant regardless.
Yeah.
Things can happen anywhere, like you said, but you still got to be vigilant. Always have a guide, and that you always do. Like even when your hunt is over, your guide stays with you. So if you want to do sightseeing, he or she will take you, and just be with your guide, and follow the protocols. Tip people generously, right? And you'll be fine.
That was my next discussion point, was gratuities on these trips. It's always, again, I'm pretty new to it, but it always seems to me, it's like, when I travel internationally for work, tipping is such a wide ranging, variety of protocol. It could be some countries do, some countries don't. The percentages go up. Is there like a guide of some sort you can offer for that, for gratuities?
Generally, your tip is in these countries is typically about 10%. Now that depends. Like if you go on a $200,000 marker hunt, 10% is 20 grand. That's typically not the case. Then you're looking probably at 5%. But generally, for most Ibex hunts, for all Ibex hunts, for chamois, for gazelle, for maral, we're talking 10%. But the key is to take small notes with you. Don't take $100 bills. Take 50s, 20s, 100s. Because when you get there, you're going to have to distribute this yourself. And then you know who worked the best, who worked the hardest, so you can adjust the tip, rather than just giving the tip to either the local outfitter or the head guide and expecting him to distribute it. He may not. So have smaller bills and wait till the end. Don't tip, and be generous. Like Mark said last night, take some extra. You can get Bushnell binoculars on sale at Cabela's for $100. Take 2-3 of those, because your guide may not have anything, may want to borrow yours, may not have anything, or may have something that you can't even give away. That's how old they are, right? Like was my guide in Kyrgyzstan. He had a pair of Bosch and Loms. Every night he had to put it over the stove to get the moisture out, right?
Oh
so
my God.
Take some of your gear that you're not going to need, give them as gifts, and tip them well. And whatever, like I leave all my medication behind, like Band-Aid, Advil, right? Tums, leave all that behind because they're going to need it.
They'll use it. So on the currency side, are you taking US dollar?
Always.
Like cash?
Yep.
Always
Cash,
US everywhere?
Yes. Nothing else.
Another good tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that
too. It has
too.
to be new bills. Like in Tajikistan, they tell you it has to be new bills. They don't want the old ones.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my when I got promoted to managing our international team, my boss, real savvy international American businessman, I asked him the question. I said, I'm dealing in like 20 countries here with people. I only speak English, and he says you only need to speak one language in the world, and that's US dollars.
That's it. He's
said,
right.
You will go places with US dollars, right?
Yeah, money talks.
Money does. Well, that's great. I mean, we're knocking out the questions here, Alex. I think it's time now to turn to some fun stuff. We want to hear a couple stories. I'm looking over your right shoulder. For most of the evening, I'm just totally blown away with the sheep that's on the wall. Can you tell us a couple stories? Maybe the one behind you there.
Well, that one is actually a sheep that I did not kill because it's out of my pay scale. That has a long story. I have made a report on it. The horns of that sheep were picked by a good friend of mine that some of you may know, Rick Taylor. He's a sculpture artist in Caslo, BC. So the story on that is Rick was in Mongolia in 1983 the first time. He was actually not hunting. He was accompanying a hunter. And he picked up those horns as a winter kill. And he brought them back to Canada. In those days, there was no problem. You did not need a CITES permit. So he had it in his office until about 3 years ago. And him and I were talking on the phone. And I said, Rick, you don't have any kids. He says, well, what do you ask? I said, well, put me in your will because I want to get those horns from you as a heirloom. He says, well, when is your birthday? I said, it's next March. So he gifted to me the horns on my birthday. And interestingly enough, he also had a friend who I don't know how what the story is, but there was a cape available for it. And I don't take credit for hunting it because I didn't, but to me, that is the ultimate wild sheep in the world, the Altai Gully. And there's only like 10 or 12 permits a year in Mongolia. And it's really for the rich and famous, I mean, I could never afford it, but I figured I put him on a pedestal because it's a showcase. It's something that everybody can come and look and just say, wow, like, is there even such a thing existing on the planet? Because, I mean, and this is not a really big one. This is like a 55-inch ram with 19-inch bases. So to put things in perspective, the world record is 72 inches along the curve with 24-inch bases. So he will dwarf him. But even that, when friends come or buddies come to my house, they just can't believe it. They go touch it. They think it's a mannequin or something that I've made out of plaster, right?
Yeah.
So
it's incredible. Did Rick do a bronze sculpture of that one? Has he done that?
No. I'll show you what Rick did. Just hang on tight. I want to show you one of my favorite pieces from Rick.
Yeah, well, Alex is doing that. I don't know if folks know, but Rick Taylor is a bronze sculpture artist located in the Kootenays in BC, and he's an incredible guy. He's got a lot of history with sheep hunting and mountain hunting, and a lot of friends in the guiding business. Oh, hey, what is this?
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So have a look at this.
There you go.
I saw this in 2000, I think 12 or 13 sheep show in Reno. And I fell in love with it immediately. Now, it was a little bit expensive, and I didn't buy it. So this is actually kind of a cool story. I'd rather tell this story versus...
Oh, please do. Yeah.
So I love this. And then I asked Rick, what the name of this bronze piece is Old and Weathered. Okay. I said, Rick, this is a Marco Polo. He said, yes. I said, why did you make this? He said, well, when I was in Tajikistan, this guard was in our camp, this old man, and he was holding a set of winter kill horns. So I took a picture and then I made this, as a memento. I said, it looks really great. I'd love to have one, but 3,500 US is a lot of money. I can't afford it. So that was 2000 watts. 10, 11, I think. Now, I'm building the story, okay? So you have to bear with me.
Yeah.
Next year, I went and I visited my uncle, who's a taxidermist, God bless his soul, in San Antonio, Texas. He was one of the greatest taxidermists to ever live, if you ask me. He did a lot of big stuff. He did stuff. He worked for Kleinbergers, Chris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chris and Bert. Bert was his buddy. So when I went to visit him, he was in San Antonio. He had a set of horns, Marco Polo horns, that had just arrived. And when I saw it, it was the first time I actually saw a set of horns, loose Marco Polo horns. And I couldn't believe it. I said, Uncle, what is this? He said, oh, we just came back from Tajikistan. This belongs to a very famous sheep hunter who passed away, by the way. His name is Sudi. He was kind of he's got like ward number 1, 2, 4, 6, 7 Marco Polo. So this belongs to him. I said, it looks really good. But he said, what I want to tell you is we had this guide over there in Tajikistan, and he was amazing. Like, he could see sheep with his, naked eye, stuff we couldn't even see in the spotting scope. And he showed me a picture of it, okay? So just take a note of what I said. When I was in Tajikistan 3 years ago hunting, the name of this guide, his name is Tok Tomat. Tok Tomat is his name. His name came up. And I don't know, I just started connecting the dots in my head. This is the same sheep guide that my uncle was talking about, and it's the same sheep guide that Rick made the bronze for. Wow. So I asked my friends, is he still alive? Everybody said, no, he's dead. But I didn't give up. I said, I really need to know if he's alive or not, because I figured somebody needs to acknowledge this man. This man is responsible for finding top number 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 Marco Polo ship in the world. Yet nobody gives him credit. I started digging, and I found out that he's still alive. He lives in a village in Kyrgyzstan, just outside the Tajikistan border. He's Kyrgyz origin. I found his son, okay? And I connected with the son through WhatsApp. He couldn't speak English. I connected with the granddaughter, and she couldn't speak English. So I had to bring a Russian coworker to talk to her. And she was very apprehensive at the time to give me any information, right? Like, what does this guy from Canada need to know about my grandpa? Then I told her the story. I said, look, your grandpa is a great man. He's done a lot of great things, but nobody really acknowledged him. So can you please give me some more information? When was he born? How was he raised, et cetera, et cetera. With all that information and all the pictures that I had gotten from her and from Rick, I turned that into an article and I put it in the Wild Sheep magazine. So people who are members of the Wild Sheep National, they may remember the article. If not, I can share it with you. But I felt, even though I didn't meet this man, I have a special connection with him. You know, and I'm so glad I was able to get this information and put him on the map, because guys like him, you know, they need the recognition. We don't have Franco Latte Award in Asia, right? All the titles that we give to our guides here. Yet these guys are the ones who carry the heavy loads, right? And nobody even knows their name. So I'm glad. So now you know the story of Tuktumat.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that's worthy. Yeah, sorry.
One more thing, Chuck. One more thing. About 2 weeks after I wrote the article, he actually got hospitalized. And his granddaughter was able to tell him in his deathbed that somebody in Canada is writing an article about you in the Wild Sheep. And that gave him a big smile.
Oh, man. That is a very cool story, Alex. Yeah. Can you imagine the stories that man had in his collection?
Incredible.
It would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic. Well, that beats any hunting story. That is an amazing tale. That's awesome. I only have one very, very easy question. I got two questions for you. One is you've been lucky enough to travel around the world, been on a lot of successful harvests of some amazing animals, and you've eaten a ton of different species of meat. What's your favorite game dish from, like, piece of meat, cut, whatever? From all the different hunts.
I have to say sheep, because I like lamb to begin with. So to me, sheep is wild lamb, right? So typically I like to eat the backstrap, medium rare. And I always take on these hunts with me some Montreal steak grub. So
every good sheep hunter does, right?
Exactly. So that's all you need. You don't need anything else. So that would be my favorite. And then the second would probably be caribou.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Caribou,
good choices.
Yeah.
We have one last question from Clay Weber. Do your kids hunt?
Yes, they do, but they're not trophy hunters. Or not hunters. Yet. Yeah. You know, they see some of the, I want to say, bullshit that goes on around sheep world. You know, I mean, when I started sheep hunting, when my dad and uncle were both big sheep hunters, sheep and Ibex. It was all about having a good time. It wasn't about who's got the biggest sheep or who's got the most number of sheep. It was a different thing. And that's really the essence of sheep hunting. If you read Jack O'Connor's book, that's the feeling you're going to get. Some of the things that I see today, you know, like a guy trying to kill 10 sheep in 1 year, right? Going from sheep to sheep to sheep to sheep. And good for him. I'm not jealous or nothing against it. But to me, that takes the spirit of sheep hunting out of the sheep hunting. You know, for sheep is a regal animal. It's not just a whitetail, or, you know, it's an animal that deserves more respect. So to me, the biggest part of the fun is dreaming about this, reading about it, educating yourself about the culture, the place you're going, learning a few words in the language, right? Learning what to do and what not to do, right? And then you're going to have a much better experience, right? So,
Hmm.
to answer your question, my sons, yes, they do both hunt. They've killed whitetail, elk, and antelope. But right now, they said that if we sheep hunt, it's going to be in North America. We don't want to go to crazy places that you do. So, but
Yeah, yeah,
they're young. They got different priorities. So we'll see what happens.
yeah, exactly. And I think, there's something to be said about that because there's a lot to unpack there. But on the international side, I mean, let's be honest, it's not for everybody, right? I mean, it really isn't. You have to have a bit of an adventurous side when it comes to cultures and adventures. And there's guys like you said that'll fly in, do a hunt, shoot their animal, get on the next plane. The cell phone never leaves their hand. The inReach is beeping 24/7. They're missing something there. There's a place for technology and a place for that, but I mean, if I'm spending, 10,000 or spending 100,000 on a hunt, and I'm gonna personally soak every ounce of it up from
Absolutely.
top to
Absolutely.
bottom, start to finish.
Yeah. There's when
Awesome.
your hunt is over, always stay the term of your hunt. They're not distributing gold through you back home. You're gonna go back
Exactly.
to your routine. Stay in camps, eat the food, or if you're done hunting, go sightseeing. I see a lot of people, like even when we were in Tajikistan, there were some hunters in our camp. They came to the hotel, the first flight out, they were out. I said, why? I mean, you're never going to come back here again. Chances are, you're here now. Go see what they have. Go see the museums. Try the local foods. Go to the bazaar. Buy some gifts. And you're going to come back as a better person. And also another thing is use your platform as you're coming from. You're being privileged. You've been given a privilege to go and hunt in their country. You're their guest. Respect them, and if you can do something for them, do it. Example is, putting somebody like a guide like him on the map, right? Or like when I went to Tajikistan, there was a part of the trail that we're crossing was extremely dangerous. And I mean, I looked at it. I'm not afraid of heights, but I always thought, well, what if something happens here? What about all these people with their donkeys and the cows? Because this is the route they were taking back and forth. So when I came back to Canada, and I mean, I was thinking about it when over there, I said, I got to give these guys some kind of a safety harness. So I came back I made a plan. I got all the material donated from Hilti, from my company, and I sent them all the material. So give them a set of drawings. So they went and drilled holes into the rock. They put a fixed cable there, and I sent them some climbing harnesses and via Ferrari. So now every year when this walkway gets washed, they go clip in, repair it without any issues. So things like this, when you go and you see a need and within your capacity you can help, do something. Instead of just throwing money, if you can do a project like this, they'll always remember you.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be a big project. The simplest things mean a lot to a lot of these people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, I think another tip that I would throw in again for the, from my experience traveling internationally, it pays to do a little bit of homework on the culture you're going to visit. There's so much available information on the internet and the travel books. You've got 20 hours of flying half the time to get there. Study the place you're going.
Yeah.
And, learn a few basic cultural protocols before you land. It just makes you a better human when you're there, and you'll get a lot of respect from the people.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
Absolutely. Like typically when I take a little Mickey with me with cognac or scotch. I always like to have a toast after a hard hunt on the animal to my dad and uncle, because those are the guys who got me into this. But on this trip, I didn't take any because I was going to a Muslim country. And guess what? A couple of the guys were fasting. So the last thing I wanted to do is to have a, pop a liquor. And I'm sure they wouldn't mind because Turkey is a secular country, but still basic respect, I can get back home and do that toast. I don't have to do it over there.
Yep, exactly. Well, I was going to ask your best piece of advice, but you've laid out so many, and we've taken so much of your time tonight. It's been
pleasure.
You've been very, very generous with your time and all your advice and tips. One last thing here, I want to give you a nice plug for Caprinae. Where do we find you guys? What's the best way? How do we find you personally?
You know what? Anybody who wants, I can give you my cell phone. I can talk. I have the electronic brochure. I have the color, the price list, and we can talk endlessly. I'm always available, typically in the evenings, and we have a website, and I also have an Instagram page. My partners are not; they're the kind that they're old school. They don't want to have anything to do with the internet or Instagram. And this is one of the things I did. I actually set up an Instagram page. So I put, not every day, but when I get a chance, I put stuff that it's kind of related to sheep hunting, ibex hunting. If we get any news, like for example, there was huge news after the sheep show, right? Because U.S. Fish and Wildlife started issuing permits for the argonis, so people can actually bring them out, right? That was huge.
Wow.
So so you can, like I said, reach me with my cell phone, email alex@caprinae.com, or text, and I'll get back to you.
And if you want, you can also reach out to Alex on Spike Camp, because he is there as well, and he's been contributing on our international section. And I hope he continues, because there's a lot of gold to mine with Alex Sharif. That's for sure.
Hey, it's a pleasure, guys. Anytime. And like you said in the beginning, we've got to keep the torch burning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thanks again, Alex. It's been awesome. We're gonna wind off the recording here and let everybody go to sleep tonight, dreaming about Marco Polo and Bez or Ibex and whatever else comes to mind. So thank you very much, sir.
One last thing I'm going to say, Chuck, before we turn off: don't delay your hunts, because chances are you're going to run out of health before you run out of money, or they're going to shut down the hunt. So remember that.
Well, if you met my wife, she's doing her darndest to help me run out of money. So let's hope that's the truth. Thank you very much for that. It's a great tip, Alex.
Take care, guys. Have a good evening. Take care.
Thanks.